The note sat on my kitchen counter like a coiled snake, crisp white paper, perfectly folded, unsigned. I picked it up with trembling fingers, my black funeral dress still damp from the afternoon rain. The words were typed, clinical. David wasn't who you thought he was. Neither is Owen. My name is Riley, and I buried my husband today. Mom, Logan's voice echoed from the foyer. Need help with those flowers? Just leave them, I called back, shoving the note into my pocket. The last thing I needed was my youngest son seeing this, not when we were all barely holding it together. The house filled with the murmur of funeral guests, their hollow condolences and casseroles cluttering my space. I pressed my palms against the cool granite countertop, steadying myself. Mrs. Harrison? Chloe's sugar-sweet voice made my shoulders tense. Owen and I were thinking, since everyone's already here, maybe we could discuss the wedding plans? I turned to face my future daughter-in-law, her perfectly manicured hand resting possessively on Owen's arm. My oldest son wouldn't meet my eyes. My husband isn't even cold in his grave, Chloe. Mother? Owen cut in, his voice sharp. Chloe's just trying to be practical. The venue we want needs 6 months' notice, and with Dad's inheritance... Don't! The word came out like a whip crack. Not today. Logan appeared in the doorway, his tie loosened, looking so much like his father it made my chest ache. Everything okay in here? Just perfect, Chloe smiled, but her eyes remained cold. Owen, honey, let's go mingle. Your father's colleagues from the hospital are asking for you. I watched them leave, the note burning in my pocket. David had been the perfect husband, the respected surgeon, our family's foundation. But that paper whispered of cracks I'd refused to see. They're vultures, Logan muttered, reaching past me for a water glass. You know Owen's been meeting with Dad's investment manager? Before the funeral? My hand instinctively touched my pocket. Has he? Something about expediting the transfer process. Logan's jaw tightened. Chloe's been pushing him. That wedding venue she wants? It's $90,000. The room swayed slightly. David and I had built our life carefully, saving every penny from our medical careers. The thought of our legacy being squandered on Chloe's champagne dreams made bile rise in my throat. Mom? Logan touched my arm. You're white as a sheet. I'm fine. I wasn't. The note's words kept repeating in my head. David wasn't who you thought he was. Neither is Owen. A burst of laughter from the living room made us both turn. Chloe stood in the center of a group, her black dress more suitable for a cocktail party than a funeral, gesturing animatedly. Owen hovered nearby, that familiar anxious look on his face that appeared whenever she was performing. I should go check on the guests, I said, but Logan caught my wrist. Wait, he lowered his voice. There's something else. I found some paperwork in Dad's study last night, investment statements that don't make sense. Owen's name is all over them. The note wasn't lying. My hands started to shake again, but this time not from grief. Thank you, Logan. I need to make some calls tomorrow. Mom? His concerned expression mirrored his father's, but I couldn't bear it right now. Everything will be fine, I lied, patting his cheek. Go help your brother entertain. Alone in the kitchen, I pulled out the note again. The typed letters blurred as fury replaced my numbness. David might be gone, but I was still here. And if Owen thought he could dismantle everything we'd built, he was about to learn something about his mother he never suspected. I crumpled the paper and let it fall into the trash. Somewhere in the house, Chloe laughed again, the sound like breaking glass. Let them think I was just the grieving widow. They'd learn soon enough. 3 days after the funeral, I found myself staring at David's investment portfolio spread across our dining room table. The numbers swam before my eyes, each page revealing another layer of confusion. 20 years of marriage, and I'd never questioned his financial decisions. Now every statement felt like an accusation. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. Through the window, I spotted Owen's Tesla parked in the driveway, Chloe perched in the passenger seat examining her reflection. Mother? Owen's voice carried that forced cheerfulness he'd developed lately. We brought lunch. I gathered the papers quickly, tucking them into a folder. Come in. Chloe swept past me, designer shopping bags dangling from her arm. I hope you don't mind, but I've been looking at wedding venues. The Rosewood Manor is absolutely perfect. The Rosewood? I remember David and I discussing it years ago for Owen's college graduation. Even then, it had been outrageously expensive. Isn't that a bit extravagant? Owen finished, setting down takeout containers. We think it's worth it. Actually, that's partly why we're here. We need to discuss the inheritance timeline. My chest tightened. It's been 3 days, Owen. Business doesn't wait, Mother. He pulled out his phone, all efficiency. The executor mentioned something about joint accounts needing to be... Stop. I pressed my palms flat against the table. Your father's accounts aren't going anywhere. Chloe's perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. But the venue requires a 50% deposit by next week to hold our date. Owen mentioned there were some investments that could be liquidated. Those investments were your father's life's work. I cut in, watching Owen's face. Strange how some of the recent statements show unauthorized withdrawals. The room went still. Owen's phone slipped slightly in his grip. I don't know what you're implying, he said carefully, but a muscle jumped in his jaw. David's tell when he was lying. Don't you? I pulled out one statement. This transfer to Owen Harrison Enterprises, dated 2 months ago. Did your father approve that while he was in intensive care? Chloe's hand found Owen's arm, squeezing. Honey, maybe we should... Dad gave me permission to manage certain accounts. Owen interrupted. He trusted my business acumen, unlike some people. The barb stung, but I held his gaze. Then you won't mind if I have our lawyer review everything? Mother. His voice dropped dangerously. Don't do this. Do what? Protect what your father built? Protect? He laughed harshly. You mean control. You've always resented my success, my ability to take risks, while you and Dad played it safe. Safe? The word tasted bitter. Your father worked 80-hour weeks saving lives while you gambled with his money. Owen, Chloe's voice held a warning. We should go. He ignored her, leaning across the table. I built something real. Dad saw that. He believed in me. Did he know about the foreclosure notices, the failed ventures, the investors threatening legal action? Owen's face went white. Behind him, Chloe's expression shifted from concern to calculation. Mrs. Harrison, she said smoothly, perhaps we all need time to grieve before making any hasty decisions about finances. Perhaps you need to stop planning million-dollar weddings with money that isn't yours. The doorbell rang again. Logan entered without waiting, stopping short at the tableau before him. Everything okay? He asked, eyes moving between us. Perfect timing, Owen snapped. Come to spy on me some more, little brother? What's that supposed to mean? I saw you going through Dad's study, running to Mommy with tales about Big Bad Owen. Someone had to, Logan shot back, while you were busy bleeding Dad's accounts dry. Enough! I slammed my hand down. Both sons fell silent, looking startlingly young for a moment. We're leaving, Chloe announced, tugging Owen's sleeve. Call us when you're ready to be reasonable about the wedding plans. I watched them go, Logan hovering uncertainly in the doorway. The takeout container sat unopened, another family meal ruined. Mom? Logan's voice was gentle. What do you need? I looked at the scattered papers, each one a piece of evidence in a betrayal I was only beginning to understand. I need you to tell me everything you found in your father's study, every detail. The front door slammed as Owen's Tesla roared to life. Through the window, I watched them speed away, my son and his fiancée, their perfect facade already showing cracks. They had no idea what was coming. The manila envelope arrived on a Tuesday, hand-delivered by David's former colleague at Memorial Hospital. Dr. Chen's face was grim as he passed it to me. "I found these while clearing out David's office," he said quietly. "You should see them." Inside were transaction records spanning the last 2 years of David's life. Each page revealed another betrayal, systematic transfers from the hospital's research foundation to Owen's various ventures. My son's signature appeared alongside my husband's, a twisted dance of numbers that made me sink into my chair. "There's more," Dr. Chen said. "The foundation board is meeting next week. They're planning an audit." The word audit hung in the air like smoke. I thought of Owen's Tesla, Chloe's designer wardrobe, the Rosewood Manor deposit they were so desperate to secure. "How much?" My voice sounded distant. "Nearly $2 million. My hands began to shake. "Did David know?" "I don't think so. The signatures?" He hesitated. "Some appear inconsistent with his later ones when he was in treatment." The implication turned my blood to ice. I remembered Owen visiting his father in the hospital, always with papers to sign, always when David was heavily medicated. My phone buzzed, a text from Chloe. "Bridal shower planning lunch tomorrow? Already invited 50 of my closest friends." I set the phone face down as Dr. Chen continued. "The board wants to keep this quiet, but if criminal charges are filed..." "I understand." I stood, suddenly needing to move. "Thank you for bringing this to me first." After he left, I drove to Logan's design studio across town. He was working late, as usual, his computer screen reflecting off his glasses. "Mom?" He looked up, concerned. "What's wrong?" I placed the envelope on his desk. "Read these. Tell me I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing." He scanned the documents, his expression darkening. "Jesus Christ, Owen. Your father's reputation..." My voice cracked. "Everything he built. We have to go to the police and destroy what's left of this family." "Mom," Logan's voice was gentle but firm. "Owen's already destroyed it." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Owen. "Meeting with wedding planner tomorrow. Need you to sign some papers for the venue deposit. Time sensitive." A bitter laugh escaped me. Time sensitive, like the foundation audit, like the foreclosure notices, like David's forged signatures. "There's something else," Logan said, pulling up his email. "Remember how I was looking into Chloe's background? She's been engaged 3 times before Owen. Each time there were financial irregularities with her fiancé's accounts. 2 restraining orders filed after breakups." The pieces clicked together with terrible clarity. I thought of Chloe's perfectly calculated smiles, her insistence on accessing David's accounts, her rush to secure the wedding venue. My phone rang. Chloe herself. "Mrs. Harrison?" Her voice dripped honey. "About tomorrow's lunch. I've reserved the private room at La Maison. Just need you to call ahead and put down your credit card for the deposit. $20,000 should cover it." I watched Logan's face as he continued reading the documents. My son, who stayed honest despite everything, who warned me while I refused to see. "Actually, Chloe," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I think we need to have a different kind of conversation. You, me, and Owen. About the hospital foundation." The line went silent for 3 heartbeats. "I don't know what you're talking about." Her voice had lost its sweetness. "Owen handles all the business matters." "Yes, he certainly does. The board meeting next week should be interesting." She hung up. Within minutes, Owen was calling. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom?" Logan touched my arm. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the evidence spread across his desk, the proof of my son's betrayal, my husband's legacy in ruins, our family's reputation hanging by a thread. The grief I'd been carrying since David's death crystallized into something harder, colder. "First," I said, gathering the papers, "I'm going to that lunch tomorrow. Then I'm going to show them exactly who they're dealing with." Logan's eyes widened slightly. He'd never heard that tone in my voice before. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Chloe to Owen, accidentally sent to our family group chat. She knows. We need to move faster. I smiled, thinking of the unsigned note that started all this. They thought I was just the grieving widow, too broken to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. La Maison's private dining room felt like a trap. Chloe had arranged the seating perfectly, herself at the head of the table, her bridesmaids flanking her like a royal court, and me isolated at the far end. I counted 23 designer handbags worth more than my car. Mrs. Harrison, Chloe clinked her champagne glass. We simply must discuss the rehearsal dinner, the Rosewood's executive chef. My phone vibrated, a text from Dr. Chen. Board meeting moved up. Tomorrow morning, they know. Actually, I set down my untouched mimosa. We need to discuss something else. The foundation documents sat in my bag like a loaded gun. I'd spent the night memorizing every fraudulent transfer, every forged signature. But before I could speak, the dining room door opened. Owen walked in. "Sorry to interrupt, ladies," he smiled apologetically, but his eyes were hard when they met mine. "Mother, could I have a word?" Chloe's bridesmaids tittered. I noticed how their phones all seemed to appear simultaneously, recording the moment. "Now isn't a good time," I said. "It's about Dad's estate." Owen's voice carried just enough for everyone to hear. "Some concerning irregularities we should address privately." My hand tightened on my bag. So that's how they wanted to play it. Paint me as the unstable widow, mismanaging funds, causing scenes at bridal showers. Irregularities? I stood slowly. Like the $2 million missing from the hospital foundation? The room went silent. Phones lowered. Chloe's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. "Mother," Owen's voice dropped dangerously. "You're upset, grieving. Let's not do this here." "Why not? Isn't this what you wanted? An audience?" I pulled out the documents. Though perhaps not these particular witnesses. Chloe stood abruptly. "Ladies, maybe we should sit down." My voice could have frozen hell. "Everyone stays." My phone buzzed again. "Logan, police just left my office. Owen's been emptying accounts all morning." The pieces clicked together. The rushed bridal shower, the audience of smartphones, Owen's surprise appearance. They were building their narrative before the foundation board could build theirs. "Your father spent 30 years building his reputation at that hospital," I said, each word precise and cutting. 30 years saving lives while you forged his signature from his deathbed." "That's a lie," Owen snarled, but his face had gone pale. "Is it? Should we call the foundation board? They're meeting tomorrow, earlier than you expected, I imagine." Chloe's mask finally cracked. "Owen, we need to go, now." "Running again, Chloe? Like you did from your last 3 fiancés? Logan found those restraining orders, by the way. Fascinating reading." The bridesmaids' phones were recording again, but for very different reasons now. Owen grabbed my arm. "You're making a mistake." I looked at his hand, then into his eyes. David's eyes, but colder, harder. "No, the mistake was thinking you were still the son I raised. Let go of me." "Mrs. Harrison," Chloe's voice had turned syrupy again. "Please, we're family. Whatever you think you know." My phone rang. The hospital's chief of surgery's name flashed on the screen. Owen saw it too. "It's over," I said quietly. "The board knows everything. The police know everything. Your little performance here won't save you." Owen's grip tightened painfully. "You have no idea what you've done." "Security!" Chloe called out, her voice shrill. "This woman is disturbed. She's threatening us." But the restaurant's security guard took one look at Owen's grip on my arm and made his own assessment. "Sir, you need to step back." I watched my son's face transform as he realized how badly their plan had backfired. All these witnesses, all those phones recording, and none of it going the way they'd intended. "You'll regret this," he hissed, releasing my arm. I thought of David. of all his years of honest work destroyed by his own son's greed, of the unsigned note that had started everything, of the choice I faced now, protect my son from consequences or protect what was right. "No," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I won't." Owen and Chloe fled the restaurant, leaving chaos in their wake. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Logan, Dr. Chen, the police, the hospital board. But for a moment, I just stood there, surrounded by strangers with phones, feeling something shift inside me. The time for grief was over. Now it was time for justice. The hospital boardroom felt like a tomb. 14 pairs of eyes watched me place David's research files on the polished table. Dr. Chen sat to my right, his presence both comfort and catalyst. "Mrs. Harrison," the board chairman began, "these allegations against your son are documented here." I slid the files forward. Along with evidence of 3 other companies Owen created specifically to funnel foundation money, the door opened. Marcus Weber, David's oldest friend and the foundation's legal counsel, entered with a stack of papers that made my stomach clench. "It's worse than we thought," he said quietly. "The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit just contacted us. Owen's not just targeting the foundation. There are at least 7 other victims." My hands started to shake. I tucked them under the table, remembering Owen as a child, his father's pride when he graduated business school. Now federal agents were using words like victims. My phone vibrated, a text from Logan. "Chloe's at the house, says she needs to talk, alone." "Mrs. Harrison?" The chairman's voice pulled me back. "Given your position as both David's widow and Owen's mother, we need to know where you stand." Where I stood, as if 25 years of marriage and 32 years of motherhood could be reduced to taking sides. "I stand with the truth," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Whatever that costs." Marcus passed me a document. "The FBI wants to interview you tomorrow. They found a pattern linking Chloe to similar schemes in 3 other states." The room tilted slightly. 3 other states, 3 other fiancés. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. "Excuse me," I stood abruptly. "There's something I need to handle." I drove home with my heart hammering. Chloe's red Mercedes sat in my driveway, but Owen's Tesla was nowhere in sight. Logan waited on the porch, his expression dark. "She's in the living room," he said. "I don't trust her mom." "Good." I touched his arm. "Stay close, but let me handle this." Chloe sat on David's favorite chair, wearing widow's black like she was auditioning for a role. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but I'd learned not to trust her tears. "Mrs. Harrison," she began, "I had no idea what Owen was doing. You have to believe." "Stop." I remained standing, using height to my advantage. "The FBI knows about Pittsburgh and Seattle and Houston." She flinched just slightly. "A tell." "Those situations were different," she whispered. "I was young, desperate, and now?" "Owen's unstable, dangerous." Her voice cracked perfectly. "He's threatening to expose things about me unless I help him move more money." I thought, maybe we could help each other. The proposal hung in the air like poison. An alliance with Chloe against Owen, mother and fiancé, united in betrayal. My phone buzzed again. "Dr. Chen?" "Owen just showed up at the hospital, making scenes, threatening staff. Police en route." "What exactly are you offering, Chloe?" She leaned forward, hope flickering in her eyes. "Information, accounts, evidence that Owen acted alone. I could help you protect David's legacy." For a moment, I saw it, the easier path. Let Chloe turn on Owen. Let her take the fall with him. Protect what was left of my family's reputation. Then I remembered the unsigned note that started everything. The way Owen gripped my arm at La Maison. David's forged signatures on his deathbed. "You really are perfect for each other," I said quietly. "What?" "You and Owen, both so convinced you're the smartest person in the room." I pulled out my phone, stopped the recording. The FBI will be interested in that confession about helping move money. Her face transformed. The vulnerable mask vanished, replaced by something cold and hard. You stupid bitch. You have no idea what Owen will do when he finds out. Logan appeared in the doorway. He'll what? What will my brother do? Chloe stood, gathering her designer bag. You're making a mistake, both of you. No, I said, thinking of David, of justice, of the choice between easy lies and hard truths. For the first time, I'm not. She fled, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and desperate schemes. My phone buzzed one final time, the FBI agent's number. The time for half measures was over. Tomorrow I would tell them everything. Logan touched my shoulder. Mom, you okay? I wasn't. I wouldn't be for a long time. But I was finally ready to finish what that unsigned note had started. Call Marcus, I said. Tell him we're ready to move forward. All of it. The war was about to begin. The Rosewood Manor glittered like a false promise. I watched the city's elite file in. Hospital board members, business associates, Owen's investors, all drawn by the promise of a reconciliation dinner. My son's last chance to explain himself before tomorrow's FBI interview. Logan adjusted my pearl necklace, David's last Christmas gift. You don't have to do this, Mom. Yes, I do. I touched the USB drive in my clutch, containing every damning document, every forged signature, every stolen dollar. They need to see who Owen really is. The grand ballroom hummed with nervous energy. Owen and Chloe held court near the champagne fountain, her laugh carrying across the room like breaking glass. My son wore his father's confident smile, but his eyes darted around like a cornered animal. Mrs. Harrison. Marcus Weber appeared at my elbow. The FBI agent called. They've frozen Owen's accounts, but there's a problem. $2 million disappeared this morning. My chest tightened. How? Offshore transfer. They think Chloe... A champagne glass clinked. Owen stood at the center of the room, Chloe radiant beside him. Thank you all for coming, he began. Especially you, Mother. Your support means everything during this difficult time. The crowd murmured sympathetically. I felt their eyes on me, the grieving widow, the concerned mother, trying to save her troubled son. If only they knew. In fact, Owen continued, I have an announcement. Thanks to my mother's generous investment in my latest venture. What investment? The words escaped before I could stop them. Owen's smile didn't waver. The transfer you approved this morning. From Dad's research foundation? The room went silent. I felt the trap closing. I never approved any transfer. But we have the paperwork. Chloe's voice dripped concern. Your signature, witnessed and notarized. Owen was so touched by your faith in him. My hands began to shake. That's impossible. Actually, Owen pulled out his phone. I have it right here, along with some interesting emails suggesting you've been embezzling from the foundation for years. Dad suspected, but he wanted to protect you. The blood drained from my face. They'd planned this perfectly. The public venue, the witnesses, the false documentation. While I'd been gathering evidence against them, they'd been building their own case against me. Show them, I challenged, my voice steadier than I felt. Show them everything. Mrs. Harrison, Dr. Chen stepped forward. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No. Owen's voice hardened. Mother's right, everything in the open. He pressed a button on his phone. The ballroom screens lit up with financial documents. My signature, perfectly forged, on dozens of transfers, emails I'd never written detailing elaborate schemes. I protected you, Owen continued, his voice carrying. Covered for you when Dad got suspicious. But after his death, your behavior became erratic. The spending, the accusations, the threats. Chloe touched his arm, the perfect supportive fiancé. We're worried about you. the grief, the stress. You really think anyone will believe this? I reached for my clutch, for the USB drive containing the truth. It wasn't there. Looking for this? Chloe held up my drive. You left your bag unattended during cocktails, careless. The room spun slightly. Every plan, every piece of evidence, gone. And in its place, a carefully constructed narrative of my own guilt. Logan, I turned to my youngest son. Tell them. But Logan stood frozen, staring at the screens, at the evidence of his mother's apparent crimes. The doubt in his eyes cut deeper than any knife. We've arranged for a private facility, Owen announced to the crowd. The best psychiatric care. Mother needs help, not punishment. 2 men in dark suits appeared beside me. Security, but not the hotels. Mrs. Harrison, one said quietly, please come with us. No, I backed away. I didn't. But I saw it in their faces. The party guests, the board members, even Logan. They believed Owen's performance, the unstable widow, stealing from her husband's legacy, now having a public breakdown. It's okay, Mother. Owen stepped forward, every inch the concerned son. We're going to take care of everything. I looked into his eyes, David's eyes, and saw nothing of the boy I'd raised. Just a stranger wearing my son's face, about to destroy everything I had left. The security guards moved closer. In the crowd, Chloe smiled her perfect smile. They had won. For now. The private facility's security was lighter than expected. 3 days of playing the sedated patient had convinced them I was no threat. When the night nurse left my door unlocked, I knew it wasn't a mistake. Logan was waiting in the parking lot, engine running. Did anyone see you? He asked as I slid into the passenger seat. No, I checked my watch, 9:47 p.m. The foundation board meeting starts in 13 minutes. Owen and Chloe are already there. Logan pulled onto the highway. They're presenting their evidence against you. I touched the flash drive hanging from my neck, the real one, not the decoy Chloe had stolen. Let them. The hospital's administrative building loomed ahead, its top floor conference room glowing like a beacon. Logan parked in the shadows. Mom, he grabbed my arm. Are you sure about this? I thought of David, of all his years of honest work, of Owen's betrayal, of Chloe's smirk as security led me away. They took everything, I said. Now I'm taking it back. The service elevator required David's old key card. It still worked. Some things they'd forgotten to cancel in their rush to discredit me. We emerged into a darkened hallway just as Owen's voice carried through the boardroom's closed doors. Clearly shows a pattern of embezzlement dating back years. My father suspected. I pushed open the doors. 20 heads turned. Did he? My voice cut through the silence. Tell us more about what your father suspected, Owen. Owen froze mid-gesture. Chloe's perfect smile slipped. Security, she called out, but no one moved. The security team is rather busy, Logan said from behind me. Something about FBI agents in the lobby. I walked to the conference table, my heels clicking on marble. Dr. Chen, would you mind pulling up the boardroom's main screen? Owen lunged for his laptop, but Marcus Weber was faster, sliding it away. You're supposed to be under observation, Owen snarled. This is proof of your instability. These are proof of yours. I plugged in the drive. The screen flickered to life. The room gasped collectively. There was Owen, caught on David's home office camera, forcing his father's hand to sign documents. David's voice, weak from morphine. Son, please, don't. Where did you get that? Chloe's voice shook. David may have been dying, but he wasn't stupid. I advanced to the next file. He installed cameras after the first suspicious transfer, recorded everything. Security footage played, Owen and Chloe in the hospital corridor, planning, scheming. Bank statements showing the real transfers, photos of Chloe with her previous victims. You took advantage of a dying man? I continued, my voice steady. Your own father. And when that wasn't enough, you tried to destroy me. You don't understand. Owen's composure cracked. Chloe needed. Shut up. Chloe's mask finally shattered. You weak, pathetic. Mrs. Harrison, Dr. Chen stood. The FBI agents you mentioned are here for them. I nodded toward the doors where federal agents now stood, although they're particularly interested in Chloe's activities across state lines. Chloe bolted, shoving past Logan. She made it 3 steps before an agent caught her arm. Mom! Owen's voice changed, became the little boy who once needed me. Please, I can explain. You can explain to them. I met his eyes, David's eyes, one last time. Your father recorded one last message before he died. Would you like to hear what he really suspected? The color drained from his face. As the agents led them away, the board members sat in stunned silence. Logan touched my shoulder, offering silent support. Mrs. Harrison, Marcus finally spoke. The Foundation's reputation. How do you want to handle this? I looked at the screen, still showing David's final days, my husband's legacy, nearly destroyed by our own son's greed. We tell the truth, I said, all of it. Then we rebuild. And Owen? I thought of the unsigned note that started everything, of justice and revenge and the thin line between them. He made his choice. I unplugged the drive, David's last gift to protect what he'd built. Now he faces the consequences. Logan and I left them there, descended to the lobby where reporters were already gathering. Through the glass doors, I saw Owen and Chloe being led to separate cars, their perfect facade finally shattered. Mom? Logan's voice was quiet. Are you okay? I wasn't. I wouldn't be for a long time. But as I watched the federal agents drive away with my oldest son, I felt something shift inside me. The end of one chapter, the beginning of another. Let's go home, I said, thinking of David, of justice served, of peace finally within reach. It's over. The unsigned note sat on my desk, edges worn from constant handling. I'd found it while clearing David's study, tucked inside an old medical journal, written in my own handwriting, a message I'd left myself and forgotten, born from late nights watching Owen pressure his dying father for signatures. You already knew, I whispered to David's empty chair. You were trying to tell me. A knock at the door. Logan entered with a stack of newspapers. The headlines screamed of Owen's sentencing, of Chloe's plea deal, of the Foundation's restored reputation. Dr. Chen called, he said. The board approved your proposal for the new pediatric wing. Dad's name will be on it. I traced David's name on the medical journal. And the other thing? Found it this morning. Logan placed a small recorder on my desk. Dad's last message, the one you mentioned at the confrontation. It doesn't exist, does it? No, I met his eyes. But Owen didn't know that. A ghost of a smile crossed Logan's face, so much like his father's. You played him, like he played us. I learned from the best. I gestured to the papers. Chloe taught me how to wear a mask. Owen showed me how to exploit weakness. And your father? I touched the note. He taught me to trust my instincts. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Marcus Weber's car in the driveway. The Foundation's lawyers, Logan said. Ready? I stood, smoothing my jacket. The old Riley would have hesitated, sought approval, tried to protect everyone's feelings. But she died with David, reborn in the ashes of betrayal. Marcus waited in the living room with settlement papers, Owen's restitution agreement, Chloe's confession, the Foundation's official statement clearing my name. There's one more thing, Marcus said, pulling out a letter. From Owen, he's requesting visitation. The room went still. Logan's hand found my shoulder. He claims he's changed, Marcus continued. That prison has given him perspective. I thought of Owen's face that night at the Foundation, of David's eyes looking back at me, pleading for mercy, of the son I'd lost long before I realized he was gone. No, The word came easily now. Some bridges stay burned. Marcus nodded, understanding. As he gathered his papers, I noticed a small card had fallen from Owen's letter. A wedding announcement, Chloe's engagement to her prison psychiatrist. I laughed, surprising myself. Some people never change. But some do, Logan said quietly. After Marcus left, I returned to David's study. The afternoon sun caught his medical degrees, his family photos, the legacy he'd built. In the corner, a small box waited. Donations for the pediatric wing's groundbreaking ceremony. I found something else, Logan said from the doorway. He held up a familiar envelope. The original copy of that note. It wasn't you who wrote it. My hands trembled as I took it. The handwriting, precise, medical, achingly familiar. Dad knew, Logan continued. He wrote it before he died, but couldn't bring himself to tell you directly about Owen. So he left breadcrumbs, hoping you'd find your way to the truth. The note blurred as tears threatened. David's final gift, not just evidence of Owen's betrayal, but permission to fight back, to choose justice over mercy. What now? Logan asked. I placed both notes, David's original and my unconscious copy, in his old medical journal. Two versions of the same warning, a father's love echoing through time. Now we rebuild, I said, thinking of the pediatric wing, of Logan's quiet strength, of the peace I'd finally found. But differently this time. No more masks, no more perfect facades. And Owen? I looked at David's photo, at the son who'd destroyed everything and the son who'd helped rebuild it, at the woman I'd become, not just a grieving widow or an avenging mother, but something harder, stronger, more complex. He made his choice, I said. I've made mine. Logan nodded, understanding the weight of endings and beginnings. Outside, the sun set on the remnants of our old life, casting long shadows that looked almost like justice. Some would call it revenge, others karma. But as I closed David's journal for the last time, I knew it was simply truth, raw, painful, and finally free.